welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us on this first session that we're actually doing virtually. We're very excited to have a Salesforce guest today, and I know that this topic is very interesting to a lot of people, so it's been great to have quite so many people join us today. So I will just kick this off. So my name's Kerry Townsend. I work at Accenture. I've been working with Marketing Cloud for the last 4 years or so, and I am very keen for all of us to get together and share information and share learning. And my co-lead is Jimson Lee. Jimson, do you want to intro?
Hi everyone, I guess people know me as the Marketing Cloud guy. I've been using ExactTarget since 2009 and happened to be around when the acquisition happened and got involved with the connector early on. And ever since then, Marketing Cloud has been, part of my day-to-day, working life. A lot of success stories and horror stories that I can share later.
Always makes for entertaining listening, and maybe some shared experience and some camaraderie with that. So this is going to be the agenda for today. We're doing a welcome, which we've just done. We're going to do a quick poll on Zoom because I'm keen to get involved in technology, and why not try something that you've never used before with a large audience to see what happens. So we'll be using a poll within Zoom to just get a barometer of who's on the call and what's happening with you in this current climate. Then we're going to move on to a session with Mark. We'll follow with some Q&A, and then we'll do some any other business. So without further ado, let's see how everyone's doing. So I'm going to launch this poll. Hopefully everybody's going to see it, and everybody's going to want to fill that in. So let's launch. I think I'm launching that. Can anybody see that?
No.
No.
No, not yet.
No.
Yes.
There
Yes,
we
now.
go.
Yeah.
So people can start filling this in before we get started.
Are people able to complete the poll, see the poll? Yes. Okay. Got my first person. Thank you very much, whoever that is.
Probably Will Turner doing that.
Yeah, love that. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a good number coming in now. Looks like we do have quite a lot of people that use Marketing Cloud daily, so that's pretty awesome. Wonderful. I'll just give you a little bit longer for anybody that is still working through those options. Okay. Well, we're pretty close now. Any more for any more? Oh, yeah, okay. So I think I'll close the poll now.
Yeah.
That is pretty good. And I can share the results with the screen. Let's see what that is there. So in terms of your role, we have a reasonably good mix here across all of these different areas, with a slight leaning towards Marketing Cloud developers and business analysts. I'm excited to see that we have a lot of people that actually use Marketing Cloud on maybe a daily basis, but we've also got a group of people who don't use Marketing Cloud at all and are curious. And then this is a tougher question, but it was important to ask to see what this current situation and the impact that it's having on people. So it actually seems like for the majority of people that it's actually staying the same. For some, it's a bit busier, and obviously some people have been significantly impacted. Okay, so thank you very much for everyone that shared that. And then in terms of meeting choices, okay, so we've got a pretty even split here between sort of a 5:30 and a 6:30. So we'll take that information on board when we start scheduling the next session. So thank you everyone for participating in that particular poll. Okay. So if we now move on, so I'm going to hand over to Jimson now.
Okay, so thanks, Gary. So I think I've never seen as much excitement over a new product release than this March release. As you know, Marketing Cloud releases 5 times a year, not 3 times a year. And this one here had a lot of buzz. And I think it's because a lot of people have the Marketing Cloud core product, which is Email Studio, Journey Builder. And this is a free product. This is included. Well, it's sort of free, but it is included to Marketing Cloud, Email Studio, and Content Builder. And it's not an expensive product. And I think people have already suffered with a lot of the options we've been trying to do with Email Studio. We've been trying to do progressive profiling and lead generation and all these fancy interactive items remotely. And now as part of the package, it's now literally drag and drop. So I think that is another reason why it's exciting. So as you know, Salesforce acquired a company called Rebel not too long ago. And we're lucky to have Mark Robbins, formerly from Rebel, now with Salesforce. And we're going to have Mark speak on interactive email. But before we begin with Mark's presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session right after. But if you want to ask a question, I think people know how to use Zoom. And there's a little ask question, raise hand feature. So during the presentation, if you can just click that if you have a question. I've got a few questions already, from our network. But if you have a question, please raise your hand. And if you want to speak, that's fine too. And if you want to just type it in the chat window, that's fine too. Okay, so on that note, Mark, on to you.
Yep. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
Cool. I'll try and share mine. See if this works. Oh.
Not yet.
Not yet. Sorry, I've just got to give Zoom permission to access my screen. Okay. Okay.
To answer JB's question, you can only see 5 people. There should be a blue arrow where you can actually flick and see the rest of the people online.
Got it. User error. Sorted it out. Sorry.
Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen now. Is that coming through?
Yeah, it's working.
Yes, it is.
Brilliant. Cool. Sorry about that. Yes. So I'm Mark Robbins. I am a software engineer in Salesforce, in Marketing Cloud, and more specifically in the interactive content team. So we're working on interactive email. As Jimson said, we came from acquisition of a company called Rebel. So I was at Rebel for about 5 years. I was actually the first employee there. So I was there for about 5 years, and then about a year and a half ago, we got acquired by Salesforce, and we've been rebuilding our technology inside there. So what we specialized in at Rebel and what we're doing now in Salesforce is interactive email. So I'm going to sort of go through a bit of that, talking about what we've done. Also, so I'm an email developer, and so in our team, I work on the HTML and the CSS, and along with my colleague Stephen, who sort of in the same role, we create the code that goes out into the email, and sort of work in the way that code is generated. Also, I do have a few little side projects about email code and email rendering, which is like Can I Email, good email code, and also contribute quite a bit to how to target.email. So just lots of things around email code is my my area. So I will do my best to share some geekery with you. First up, I'm sure if you've seen Salesforce presentations, this is a familiar slide. Any purchasing decisions should be made on products that are currently available. So let's get into interactive email. So I'm going to break it down into 2 sections. So actions in HTML email, and then also forms in HTML email. first up, these actions. So on the right here is a little demo of something we had from our old Rebel templates. So in action in emails, where you click, touch, or tab a button in an email. So whatever input device you use, so it's all, you know, should be accessible to all people, that you can trigger an action inside of an email. So on the right here, we've got an example of a image gallery. So you have a large image, and then 4 small thumbnails below it. You tap on the thumbnail, it changes the image. There's also an arrow on the left and the right to progress sort of previous and next images. And then below that, we have an example of tabs. So we have like 3 titles, and you click on the title and it changes the content in the box below. So these are sort of really good ways of tidying up your design, so you get more information in less space and allow the users to focus in on what content they're most interested in. Again, accordions is another good use of this. So you click to expand and see more content. Another thing that we've had some quite good success with before is hotspots, particularly with sort of fashion industry, where you have, for hotspots, you might have a photo, an image of a model in an outfit. Then you have a hotspot on their top, on their trousers, on their bag, their hats, glasses, shoes, whatever. And you click on one of these spots and it pops up with a bit more information about that and a link through to make the purchase. So it's where you're sort of highly focusing on the imagery, but you still want to get that information there and putting it in the context of an image. So all these are just good ways to enhance your design, content, and layout through actions in the email. So support for these, unfortunately, this is the email world, so this isn't going to work everywhere, but this sort of stuff works in iOS, Apple Mail, Samsung, Thunderbird, AOL, Yahoo, and some Outlook versions. So Outlook webmail, Outlook mobile apps, and Outlook on the Mac. This works. For Outlook on Windows desktop, unfortunately, it doesn't work at all. And there are a number of other email clients where this works as well, sort of the smaller ones. So together, this is about 56% of email opens would be able to see these kind of actions. That number, 56%, is taken from, I'm sure some of you are familiar with emailclientmarketshare.com, which is a monthly report put out by Litmus about the number of opens and where emails have been opened. So this was based on 1.29 billion opens tracked by Litmus in March of this year. So now I'm going to get onto forms, and forms is the thing that I really want to focus on more today. You can actually complete and submit a form from within inside of an email, and that data gets passed across the landing page. So the example we have on the right here, we have an example of a profile. We can see there's a couple of text boxes to ask for your name, some of your preferences, what sports you're interested in, who you're shopping for, and how would you describe yourself with a little drop-down menu, a little select menu. So this is a great use case for if you want to get more information of a profile of a user. So personalization is great, being able to segment your list and send relevant content to the right people, all that sort of stuff is just great marketing. But if you don't have that information about a user, you need to get it somehow. So if you have a very simple sign-up process, you're just taking people's email addresses, you don't take more information, then you can use some of this profile to fill that out and get more information about the user, and then follow on from that to future marketing. Another great use case that we see come up a lot is reviews. When we were Rebel, the company Rebel, we saw some of our customers get twice as many reviews by putting a review directly in the email as opposed to linking to it on the website. And sort of theoretically, what our thinking is, of the reason behind that is it's changing the question. Instead of asking your users, would you like to leave us a review, you're straight away into the review, you're asking them, what did you think? And it's a much engaging question. So that, I think, explains the higher response. also, there's a lot more transparency there. You can see what the questions are. You can see what this form is. If you have a link, then you, as a user, you might be asking, do I need to sign in or create a profile to be able to complete this form? How many questions are there going to be? Is it going to be complicated? Is it going to take me like 2 minutes or 10 minutes? I don't know. So having that transparency and reducing the friction of the extra click, I think really helps in performance. Another good use case, survey. So you just get a bit of information like the poll we did earlier at the start of this call. That could be incorporated into an email. And yeah, from B2B lead forms as well. Although I know this is a B2C group, so I'm not going to focus too much on that at the moment. So all of this, the forms are coming to, this slide is a little out of date. It says coming soon, but it's actually should be in your accounts now, hopefully, inside Content Builder. If you look in the interactive content section, there should be a little form, email forms tile in there, so you can drag and drop that in. So this is built inside Content Builder, so it's your standard simple drag and drop interface that hopefully you're already familiar with. We have got a few starting points. I think there's 4 different starting points. So, but that's just pre-populating a few fields. You can do this completely custom from an empty form to begin with, and then put whatever fields you want, or take one of the starting points and customize it yourself. We've got a number of different form inputs, text inputs, select menus, radio buttons, checkboxes, little star rating as well, and more things in there. Customize it to your own brand stylings, make it look and feel like your brand as well. And you'll get the results of this when it's submitted. We can go directly into Marketing Cloud. You can use that to update records. You can use it to trigger journeys. And to be honest, I'm sure you'll know a lot more about what you can do with that than I do. I don't really use the front end side of Marketing Cloud because I'm an engineer. I'm behind the scenes, so I'm sure you have a lot more ideas of what possibilities you could do. And that's one of the things that I'm personally most excited about, is seeing what it is that people can do with this beyond the use cases that we've thought of. So one of the use cases which came up in our pilot, which we've just had a few customers running on the pilot, the Indiana Pacers, a basketball team over in the States, they used this form here for people who had attended a basketball game at their stadium. They wanted to get a bit of feedback on the experience of the stadium. So they sent this form out, and customers filled it in and submitted the form. Actually, what they did with this form as well, I believe if anybody gave them low scores, they would send that over into Service Cloud so they could follow up and sort of resolve any issues that might have come up. So sort of, there's a great integration sort of beyond what I had thought of personally. I'm sure other people knew what was happening. Another example, this is a supermarket that was sent out in Spain, a bit of a survey about some products that they were experimenting with, I believe. And out of the people who opened the email, 67% completed the form, which is phenomenally high numbers. So we are very happy with that. They were very happy with that as well. So we hope to see more results coming in like that, but we'll see. So support for the forms is a bit different to the actions that I mentioned earlier. So we have lost all of the Outlooks, unfortunately, and Thunderbird, but we have gained Gmail. And by gaining Gmail, that actually puts the percentage up to 83% of users opening this will see the forms and be able to interact with them. Again, this is taken from Litmus, these numbers. Your own statistics will be different. We have seen users with higher percentages, like in the 90s even, and some with lower as well, obviously. So it depends on your market and your list of where. But if it is in these email clients, so you see a lot of opens, then you'll get good support. But as I say, it doesn't work everywhere. So we do need to think about fallbacks. You always need to think about fallback with this enhancements, with any enhancement really. Email is a tricky medium to work in from a code point of view, I know well. So you always need to think about fallback. Although sometimes the fallback can be no fallback. You can just not show something. If, for example, if you just had a simple little search box, there's not really a static equivalent to that. So you could just not show a fallback. But otherwise, in Content Builder, you do have the option to include a fallback. So you can just choose a content block to show in the fallback. So for those users who aren't able to interact with the form will be hidden and they'll see the fallback content instead. So generally, there's an idea of what to use. There is a fallback for a form, generally a link to an online version of the form. So in Content Builder, when you're creating these forms, it creates a cloud page version as well. So you can link users to the cloud page form as well. Things like equations and tabs, you show expanded content, and gallery, you'd choose, maybe not show all the images. You could do if you want, but I'd recommend maybe just choosing a main image. And just think back to what did you do before the interactive version? What is this interactive version enhancement? You need to remember this is an enhancement. So you already have your email campaigns, and we're using this as an enhancement for some of the users. So there should always already hopefully be something there for the users who can't interact. From a design point of view, and also I guess strategy and concepts, it's important to remember there is one subject line, and this will cover every version of the email. So when the user opens the email, it's at that point where the decision is made with the code to show the interactive version or the fallback. So that subject line is always going to be the same for both versions. So you need to make sure you cover that, and you say generally what the email is about, rather than specifically you can interact with this inside the email. Using recognizable design conventions is a great tactic, just so things look like that you can interact with them. So a star rating looks like a star rating, text box looks like a text box. Also pull in your designs from your forms that you use already on your website, and so the users who are familiar with that can interact. It's more intuitive for them. But also, don't be afraid to call it out and tell people how to use these and how to interact. We found previously in testing, but when we're at Rebel, that a lot of users didn't really know that this was an enhancement. They just intuitively interact because of the user interface is familiar, so they intuitively interact with it. So people don't know, but sometimes it's good. There's no harm in telling people to reinforce it. I used an example the other day of a door. If you have a door handle on one side and just a flat plate on the other side, and it says push and pull, it's obvious, but it's no harm in giving that extra information. Being clear with your form input labels, tell people what you're asking them, be clear about what you're asking. We do have some validation as well going on, but just to avoid validation errors, be clear about what information you're trying to get from them. And also, always with any enhancement, the motivation should be about user experience and enhancing user experience. It's not about being gimmicky and cool and modern. It's about providing a better user experience. So thanks a lot. That's my slides. It was short and sweet, but I'm sure there's be a few questions. I'm going to try my best to answer some things, but as I say, I am on the engineering team, so I might not be able to answer everything. But yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Mark. Thanks for that. Okay, I got some questions. So I'll ask them rapid fire, a couple of them, and then we'll turn it to the floor. We'll ask the audience attendees if they have any. And there were a couple of questions in the chat window as well. So, okay, so question number one, the obvious, will this work in Pardot?
In Pardot, I'm afraid this is currently Marketing Cloud only for now. I believe.
Perfect. That's what I thought. So you mentioned surveys, and this is a B2C world. In the old days, if you have a one-question survey, it was possible. But the minute you do more than one question, it would always redirect them into the website, say SurveyMonkey, and then you fill it in. So with the surveys, can it write back to Marketing Cloud the results, so you know what they scored you at?
Yeah, so you can put in a number of input fields into the form, and when that's submitted, it can pass straight into Marketing Cloud or third-party systems as well. I would say if you're doing a huge survey with lots of questions, if you were to do that on the web, you would probably break it up into pages. So you could potentially put the first page into the email, and then the following on pages into the web. But that would involve extra work to build custom stuff on your side.
Right. The big question is super messages. Now we know, like with Pro, you get 2.5 million super messages, and corporate you get 10 million super messages. What's the cost of using this per content block? Is it 1 or 2 super message?
To be honest, I don't know, and also if I did, I'm probably not allowed to talk about pricing.
Okay.
But if you follow up with your account teams, they can give you more information about that. But yeah, honestly, I don't know at the moment.
Yeah, I would think 10 million super messages should be sufficient for business, but you never know. That was one of the questions. Yeah. A couple more questions here, rapid fire. So does the form have any kind of validation for the data submitted?
Yeah, so we do have validation. So as I mentioned in the slides, when you create a form, you create a Cloud Pages version and an email version. So you only need to create it once, but it's stored in 2 places. When the form is submitted from the email, it runs through the Cloud Pages. At that point, the validation is done, and any validation errors will be flagged up. So the user will land on if there's a validation error, will land on that and be able to fix the validation errors. If it passes all the validation, then it will just continue on, depending on what path is the form is set up to take. So we do have some level of validation. I don't know all of the validation, but things like required fields, I think we've got minimum, maximum length of characters in a text field and things like that.
Right, and once you get to a landing page or a cloud page, that's again 1 super message. Okay, last question before I turn it to the audience. AMP, can you discuss this method and compare it to AMP or AMP for email?
So yeah, so for those who don't know, AMP for emails is new MIME type. So for doing interactive content in email, this method is using HTML and CSS. So this is using your HTML MIME type, whereas AMP is using a separate MIME type. Other than that, there's a lot of overlaps and a lot of, there's some small differences. One of the main ones being support of where it works. AMP, I believe, is currently in Gmail. It's coming soon to Yahoo. It's in Outlook, some versions of Outlook, and mail.ru. So yeah, and one of the other differences is forms submitted through AMP will always stay in the email client, so you don't get redirected to a landing page, but you can pull information into that. Forms submitted through HTML Interactive will always be directed to a landing page, but you could make that whatever you like, that landing page.
Okay, no, that's good. So let's turn it to the chat window. So Mark, you can actually read them instead of having me speak them out. But start from 6:50 p.m. So Varesh, I think we asked that or answered that question. If it's not supported, it goes to the fallback tab page. Chris Zulo asked, is it available for all editions, which is Pro, Corporate?
I'm not too sure about that, I'm afraid. Yeah, you might have to check with your account teams. And also, also you can just look in Content Builder. If you see it there, then it's available. But yeah, you might need to follow up on that if you can't see it.
Yeah, I know it works for corporate, professional or pro. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, Monsi asks, can you have pre-populated fields in the surveys?
That is a good question. I don't believe that's currently available.
Okay. Okay, next rapid fire question. Alex from 659, are the same analytics from Rebel used in Marketing Cloud?
We don't have the analytics that we had in Rebel. No, we don't have that information yet. There are, in terms of tracking email generally, there is a lot of talk currently about privacy, and there are, might be, people are making predictions that it's going to get tightened up, sort of, following on from GDPR. There might be more privacy sort of regulations coming in around tracking. So not sure what the issue is going to be long term, but that's just what I've heard from other people in the industry on the grapevine. So, but yeah, we don't have that currently, no.
Yeah. And for those who are using Marketing Cloud, the March release does include the Einstein tab on your console. So check it out. If it's not available, it'll be available on the 10th of April. Okay, Florin asked 7 questions here. So
questions. I'd like to give a big shout out for Florin there.
Yeah,
Go
Florin.
Team London. I think we're doing great on the questions here.
That's a lot of questions. Well done.
Yep.
Okay, again. Okay, number 1 from Florin. Is the send performance impacted for large sends when we use interactive email?
Not that I'm aware of. We do a lot of things with our code. We code very efficiently. We don't have to support Outlook, so we don't need to do lots of tables for the interactive code. We can be much more efficient in the way we write our code, and we minify it so it does keep it small and more efficient. So it's not as big a chunk of code as you might expect. But I'm not too sure of any. I haven't seen or heard of any performance issues so far. So so far so good.
Yeah, I think it should be clear that Outlook pre-2007 for Windows for desktop is supported because that uses HTML for rendering. It was only after 2007 when they made that change to Word rendering. So if you are working for an old company, like say like an old-fashioned insurance company in Manchester who's still using old Outlook, then you may still work, and it still does work. So that's something to keep a note of. But everyone else is probably running the latest Outlook or Outlook Web. Okay, question number 2. Can the form itself or any specific elements of the form, no, I asked that already. 3, does the email forward mean someone else can submit the form when you forward to a friend?
So it's, generally speaking, when the email is forwarded, they will see the fallback. It is because there are so many sort of possible combinations of receiving it in one client and forwarding it to another email client. It's impossible, really, and impractical rather, to test all of those. So there is a possibility somebody may be able to see the form from that, and they may be able to submit, but again, this is sort of, it depends what content you're asking for. Also, if you were to have a web view of the form, so you have a view on web link, then that could be submitted. But in some cases you want that. In some cases, if you want to get as many survey results as possible, maybe you want people to share it. If not, then yeah, like sort of disable view online links. And I think there are some things happening in the back end as well, sort of, to work on that, but I don't know what's happening on the back end because those guys are cleverer than me.
Yeah, I think it depends on what platform or client they're using. If it's Gmail and Gmail or G Suite to G Suite among companies, it reacts one way. But if it's G Suite to say Yahoo, it might just go to fallback. So
Yeah,
again,
generally speaking, it does fall back. We always, everything we code with progressive enhancements, we always create the fallback as default. So actually the term fallback is maybe a little misleading because that is the default version. And then if we detect that is supported, then we will switch over to the enhanced version. So we always err on the side of caution with the way it's coded. So any changes as emails forward, they make changes to the code. So this quite often does trigger it to go back into its fallback state.
okay. And that leads to the next question about SSL certificates. Is it mandatory now to purchase that for cloud pages?
I have no idea, I'm afraid, sorry.
Okay, just be aware that SSL takes 4 weeks of lead time. So if anyone here is trying to get SSL installed on Marketing Cloud, it will take 4 weeks or more. So get that ahead of time. Okay, question 4 from Florin. Can we use personalization strings or AMP script to pre-populate the values of the field?
So yeah, you can put things like AMP script and into the text fields that where you have a text field available, you can put things like that in, and yeah, that works just fine.
Okay, good. Okay, question 5. Are there validation rules available for the form fields?
Yep, we have validation built in. Things like email address. We actually have an input type. When you select text input, you can select a type of, off the top of my head, text, telephone number, email address, URL, and I think that might be 5. Yeah. And then the validation does go along with that. So if you try and put text into a number field, it will flag a validation error.
So it's only a validation for email for data types, not to verify. Like it's not like Kickbox or Bright Verify or Strike Iron.
We don't have anything for verifying that if you have a real email address, we don't have anything like that built in on our side. But we detect the format is correct, so it's something at something dot something. But we don't verify that it's a valid email address. But once you collect them, then you could probably run something afterwards to validate.
Okay, perfect. Okay, question 6. I assume there is no way to persist the state of the form so that when the customer reopens the email after opening it, the form would be preoccupied or pre-populated with the values selected before. Is that possible?
That is unfortunately that's not possible. This is as this is just HTML. Once it's submitted, then it's gone. Some email clients treat things differently. So if you were to half fill out a form and then click out of that email and then click back into it, depending on the email client, some of them retain that information so you can continue filling it out. Some of them will completely reload the page. But different email clients work slightly differently.
Is there an ideas page? My question. Is there an ideas page where people can submit enhancements and suggestions like you do for Salesforce Core?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm sure if you can definitely submit stuff through, talk to your account teams and get information that way. But there might be something. I'll follow up on that because I'll be interested in that.
I mean, it should follow the normal sort of ideas format. I'm sure they do track that for Marketing Cloud. It's just not as incorporated as it is for the rest. So as far as I'm aware at the moment, the Marketing Cloud ideas are not considered for the new prioritization approach that they take with Salesforce, where they go into a prioritization cadence of every 3 months, and then they look at them and they put some out to the audience. But I think that the standard way for anything Marketing Cloud would still be to put them on the ideas and then get the community to vote them up.
Yeah. Okay, because some of these are really good suggestions.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
We've got one more there, which was, is there a method of including date time fields?
So date fields in forms are notoriously difficult across everywhere. There is an HTML input type of date and date time, but they are not. It's not supported across browsers, so we are not supporting that. But there are a number of other options you could do. We have select menus, so drop down select menus, so you could have a day one, a month one, and a year one if you wanted to do it that way. Or you could give people sort of text, just a text box on its own is probably not a great idea because people write dates in different formats. But if you have maybe three, one for day, one for month, one for year of text box, and then you give people specific instructions on how to do it, they could do that. But yeah, dates are a very tricky one to include and to validate. So it's yeah, it's a difficult one, which I know everybody struggles with.
Yeah, exactly. Last
So
two questions from somebody here, from Monsi, 712. If someone has already submitted the form, can you have a form completed message?
So you can, when they hit the landing page, you can do a message there, but when they open the email again, it'll still show the form. But if they try and submit twice, I'm not too sure, but you might be able to look into options of handling that data once it's submitted, but I am not familiar enough with systems to know if you can block off fields or not.
And then the last question from Monsi was, can you avoid people submitting the form more than once? Kind of a spin-off from the first question.
No, you can't stop them submitting it more than once. Unfortunately, they can, yeah. If they open the email, it's already sent. It's just HTML is there, so it's once it's out in the wild, we can't push updates to it, unfortunately.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
I have a couple of questions. So you mentioned the fallback state or the default state, and I'm afraid I haven't logged in yet or looked at the functionality. So when I set it up in the in Content Builder, does it work in the approach that it's all very drag and drop, and I bring in the content block with that, and then it encourages me to both set a default and the form content, or do I need to put some coding or some dynamic content in that for it to be able to detect?
When you drag it in, when you drag the form block in, then you get all the form customization options to add and remove inputs and change its design. And there's also an option in there to define a fallback. So in there, then you can just define a code block or
just a different content block that we would serve if it
yes,
didn't detect
exactly.
that it could. Excellent, lovely. And then how does this work with email accessibility?
From an accessibility point of view, it's something I've done a lot of work on, actually, accessibility. So we've tested this and tested it and tested it and tested it. So this, if you can use it with a keyboard inputs and just generally any inputs, so you can tab across and select options that you want. You can type in and you can click checkboxes, radio buttons, and make your selections. Using a screen reader, it will announce everything, and you can make all your selections through that way as well. Accessibility is one of those sort of ongoing tasks that you're always working towards. So we're testing and testing and testing it, but I'm very happy with the state it's in. I've done so much testing that it's yeah.
Okay, well that's good to hear, because we need to be doing things for everyone.
Exactly, yeah. It's something that I've done a few talks on in the past, accessibility, and I find it a really interesting topic and a really exciting challenge to work with.
Okay, well, that's maybe something that you can
Definitely.
come back and talk to us about at a different point, which would be great.
Yeah, that could be good. Yeah.
Yeah. Two more questions on the chat window here. So from Ashish from 716, do we need to write any AMP script code on the thank you page to insert input in the data extension?
No. So when you create the form, you select where you want the data to be submitted, either to an existing data extension or to a new one. And so that's just done automatically. That information is just passed across. You don't need to write any additional code on that.
Good. And another question from Florin. Can we update the submit URL after the email is sent, just like for other links in the email? You know how you can actually change the URL after, so.
I'm not sure. I don't know about that. That's an interesting question though.
That's the level of detail we get into around here.
Yeah, I'm liking this. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great detail.
Yeah, again, one for the ideas. Questions from Jenna from Atlanta. Two questions on product roadmaps. I don't know if you can answer that or not. If you can't, that's fine. She asked, is it on the roadmap to allow the use of multiple interactive blocks in a single email?
We can use multiple forms already. That's built in. You can just drag multiple forms into a single email. Don't put hundreds in there because you're going to end up with a huge amount of code and probably don't want that. But you can do multiple forms, other content blocks, sort of interactive. I don't know the logic behind that side of it. I'm afraid.
We need to check to make sure when you have two content blocks, are you being charged for one or two super messages? We need to double check that. That's
I can't comment on that. I'm not sure, to be honest.
Yeah. Another question from her was on roadmap to allow more than WYSIWYG access so that we can loop through and assign a content block by ID or a key to be used for dynamic display with interactive elements.
So our block is a bit more complex than most of them. We need to make changes to a template in a number of places for it to work. So at the moment, it is just done through the content builder, but you can use a custom template with it. You can upload your own custom template, and you could potentially put other logic into that template. But the block needs to be done through the drag and drop editor currently.
Good. I don't see any more questions, and I don't see anybody with their hand up in the window. Is there anybody have a question that want to speak? Anybody here? Carrie, help me out. Can you see anybody?
Yeah,
with their
I can't.
hand up?
I can't see anyone at this time, but I'm juggling a couple of screens and I'm not sure I'm doing it
I got
well.
a question for you.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, how are you?
I'm okay.
Any hope that we could maybe get this for Social Studio?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. You can definitely ask.
Well, I have.
you can ask your account teams. I'm just an engineer. I have no power.
You're the one who can actually make it happen, though. So I'm going straight to the source. I don't have time for that.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay, no, any other questions here? Anybody? I don't see anybody here. No, I think that's it. I think we answered all the questions on the chat.
Oh, no, I think we've got one more.
Oh,
Okay, so this is what's the most complex interactive block you've worked on?
Oh, so we at Rebel we made a shopping cart and checkout within an email, which had multiple pages, multiple products, lots of customization in it, which was pretty crazy. You had a product, you had a shirt, you click on that and it would open a new page and you could change the color and the size and the quantity. and it will do calculations on the price. This is all just a proof of concept. This was not a product at any point. So I think that's probably one of the most complicated. That, and I built a game. Wolfenstein 3D was the first 3D first-person shooter game. Predates Doom by 6 months or a year or something like that. I built a version of that in an email just for a conference, just for fun. That wasn't, again, not a product. But I like sort of playing around and pushing the limits of things. But by doing that, like, you can learn a lot, but it's not necessarily a cost-effective way of using it. It's just a good way of learning and experimenting and playing around with things.
Yeah, it seems like we need a session on your side projects.
Yeah,
Really, they sound pretty interesting. And then we've got another question. Can we build a wizard kind of form with this for a better user experience?
What would a wizard form be?
I think so I assume it's like you step through a number of stages. I mean, I think what we were talking about so far was that it would, like, you could start with one set of questions on the form, but then it would jump out to a cloud page.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so from the form, from the functionality that is there currently, you don't have that. But you can pass the data you get through into your own system and build more logic off the back of that. So you could do the first stage through the email and then pass it into your own custom built information. Then you have pull that data through and then work on something on your own website, and if you wanted to. But yeah, that would be bit of work on your side, I guess.
Another.
Yeah, the questions that keep coming.
Yeah.
So I think if we say we'll do these last two and then we're probably close to time, so then we'll just do the final wrap. Do you think that's okay, Jimson?
Yeah, sounds good. We're 4 minutes to go. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, Kerry, can I ask a very quick question first?
Hi, Paul.
Hello. This is
Hi.
actually a question for Chris.
Yeah.
You asked the social studio question just now. Can you expand on how you see that working, Chris, yourself? So if you obviously think, we have the form submissions, we have all these other cool things that Mark's taken us through, within Social Studio, you're obviously talking about the publish and maybe even the engage stages. How would you see that working in terms of those channels?
I think it's an easy win for similar reasons as far as customer service is concerned, asking quick questions, having that, right there in the post. Obviously, you're limited on some certain media platforms like Twitter, be a little bit smaller, but I would see that being a use case for that. Could definitely be used for government situations, disaster recovery, are you safe, stuff like that. I can mainly customer service and sort of emergency responsive type scenarios. You could theoretically do it from a product perspective, but it's not as strong. If somebody made a purchase, then it's going to come anyways through the email. But I could see a lot of parallels for the social example to be beneficial.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a really interesting idea, right? How you can push that out, and you're going to have the social media channels on board as well. Pushing out this sort of tech to these guys that have their own internal ones. How can we shape something very similar? I think that's a really good, it's a little niche market for you there, Chris. Go off and develop it. Go.
I was just about to say that's what I'm hearing. So thanks for the green light. I think I may have to just go ahead and do that.
We have it on recording.
Version of Pro works.
Yeah, we got proof. Hey, Jimson, can you send me the recording of this? I want this for my records.
Yep. We'll make that available.
Okay, we got 4 questions now. Mark, how do you feel? You want to do them quickly, or you want to send them an email?
Whatever you think's best. We are running low on time, but I could try and fire out some answers.
Yeah, and if we get any more beyond this 4, then we'll get Mark to answer them as best, and then we'll put them in the Trailblazer community channel, like the Marketing Cloud user group channel in there for people to see.
That's how the other groups do it with their office hours. You have to ask it on the chatter page, and then
Cool.
we get asked. Okay, quickly here. So from Multibank, 7:25 p.m. The link in the form which shows a list of email clients that support this service seems not to be working and gives a 404 error. Can this be fixed?
Yeah, I don't know what link that is, but we can, yeah, have a look at fixing that.
Triaging bugs right now as well, live on the call.
Okay, from Harry. Could we render a cloud page directly into an email via interactive email block? For example, a custom search cloud page where the user could perform search and view results within the email.
We can't get the results in the email. The form that we build in the email is also created in a cloud page. So it's more email to cloud page rather than cloud page to email. But we can't get the results directly there. Unfortunately, no.
Okay, last two from Sandeep. Can images in the form be dynamically displayed for each subscriber? So a different image of a product to review per customer.
I don't know how that works, because I suppose that would be using the image component rather than the form block. Would be using the image block. So I'm unsure how that side of it works, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Okay, I know it works statically in AppScript, but then dynamically within it, I'm not 100% sure it's going to work. But you know, we'll all have access in 2 days, and we can all play with this, right?
Yeah.
Some are lucky who have it now. Last question here from Vimel. Can we capture sensitive data like password and card details on the form? If so, how can this data be stored into a data extension?
Anything like that is yeah, more complicated legal things. So you'd need advice from sort of legal teams around privacy and things like that. Also around things like GDPR stuff, talk to legal teams. I can tell you we can capture information, but I can't tell you that it's okay to take it and what if it's okay to do to do anything with it. So yeah, that'll have to be a more of a legal question, I guess.
I mean, if I received an email with a dynamic form in it that asked me for that detail, I'd be clicking spam sooner than you.
That's also a very good point. Yes.
Like I mean, particularly in the current climate, I can't see anybody being happy with that, or to be honest, and I don't work for Salesforce, I can't imagine Salesforce would be happy with that, because if trust is your number one value and you're using your product to put in like card details and passwords, which they would never recommend that you put in Marketing Cloud anyway, then that, yeah, that makes me feel very, very uncomfortable. So I think we're going to start wrapping now. So I am just going to go back to sharing my screen, because I have one last slide that I wanted to show people. So again, thank you very much, Mark, for your time and your diligence through our questions as we worked through that. And I personally hope to see you on another one of these calls again. Just in terms of any other business, I just wanted to highlight to our audience that as it stands at the moment, there are lots of virtual learning and some virtual conferences coming up. So Salesforce are currently running certification days, and within that there is the email specialist. So if you've not already got your email specialist certification and you've got some extra time, then this could be a good time to start looking at that. They're running webinars which typically last maybe 4 or 5 hours, which take you through all the things or some of the stuff that you need to know in order to do that prep, and then you can take the exam with, I think, a certification voucher, so it's a reduced cost. Connections has become virtual, so that has now become accessible to a whole load of people that it wasn't before. And I think in the last, maybe at the last meetup, I asked everybody to put their hands up who was going to Connections, and there was possibly maybe 2 people. So I would imagine that actually that number will quite significantly increase. So that will be quite exciting. And then there's also Virtual Dreaming, which is another conference. Now, again, they don't have a specific marketing track, but if you are cross-cloud, then you might be interested in that virtual conference, and that's happening in May. So Jimson, did you have any other business?
No, that's it. I want to thank everyone for attending. I know it's late in the evening, and I guess we look forward for the next one. We will put it on the Trailblazer community site, so if you've already registered, you'll get an email saying when the next one is.
Yep. Brilliant. Mark, anything else you'd like to close with?
Thanks a lot for having me, and thanks for all the questions. Sorry I couldn't answer all of them, but hopefully you can get answers from your account teams, or if you want to follow up, I can try and track down things for you as well. So it's, yeah, but thanks a lot for having me.
Brilliant.
Great. Thanks, everyone. So we'll see you all the next one.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.